You know, we are in the beginning of a golden age for Digimon, and it's Gammamon you can thank for that. Welcome to Podigious, a monthly gathering of disembodied voices that haunt your podcast feed, your spooky companion through Digimon Ghost Game.
This week we're discussing Episode 1, The Sewn Lip Man, Episode 2, The Mystery of the Museum, Episode 3, Scribbles, and Episode 4, The Doll's Manor. I'm Jeff, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm going for Halloween as a tired podcaster who didn't have the effort to put together a costume. So I'm just at my podcast mic on Halloween night.
Hold on, I'll throw a bedsheet over you.
Yes, pretend there's a bedsheet over me.
I'm Aster, she, her pronouns, and for Halloween, I'm going as the person who didn't realize the Zoom camera was still on at the end of the call.
That is a horrifying nightmare. Oh my god.
Wait, are our cameras on?
Our cameras are not on.
Better not be. I'm not wearing pants.
Because mine's not plugged in, so you're just going to get the feed from my VTuber thing. I'm Toya. My pronouns are he, him, and for this Halloween, I'm going as the ghost of Digimon Adventure, a dead horse.
Oh
no.
But yes, we are here to talk about Ghost Game episodes 1 through 4, and spoiler policy is that we don't have any future knowledge, we don't have any psychic clairvoyance about any new info about Ghost Game beyond what was in episode 4, which includes the preview for episode 5, which we will talk about.
We will talk about that.
But we don't have any other news, so we don't have to worry about spoilers for that. And if we talk about any late stage plot reveals from other Digimon seasons, then we will give you fair warning. But that might come up. But if you fall asleep and then wake up, you might wake up in the middle of some spoilers. And also, before we get started, we have one bit of new rules to the podcast, which is if I'm going to keep a running tally of, okay, this first one's not going to count. But if we say this word 3 times, then I can't say the name of the song. If we say the word spooky 3 times, that didn't count.
That didn't count.
The haunted Digimon song will start playing. So we have to avoid saying that word.
Got it.
All right. And before we get into Ghost Game stuff, this is the debut of a new segment for the show. We're going to be talking about our favorite bit of Digimon news or events or Digimon-related things that have happened the past month that we are the most excited by.
Woo!
I'm out of breath, so Aster, do you want to start off?
Me? Okay. I'm very happy with I was kind of watching the card game turnover because we're going from the reboot to Ghost Game now, right? And for before now, the card game was just the card game would have some of the stuff from other series, but then it would also pair it with a reboot thing, right? And now I wanted to kind of see how the handoff to Ghost Game would go and how things are. So it's been a really fun feeling seeing they're doing the new starter deck and with the Ghost Game cards in it and just kind of transitioning over to Ghost Game. There was a survey they posted yesterday where it was asking about the status of whether you'd watch the reboot and Ghost Game or which ones you've seen and not seen. And it's nice to see that they're putting proper thought into sort of the baton passing. And I do think I probably am going to get that starter pack once it releases in North America, which may not be for a while. I get that, but that's fine. But that's fine. And of course, the upcoming booster is Zero Two themed, and me being a very happy Zero Two fan is very happy with that. But overall, it's more about the overall thing. I am happy to see that the handover seems smoothly.
Yeah, it's the new card game launched alongside the new adventure reboot, and there was a time where I was kind of worried that can it live past it, and it seems like the transition is going well. And at least in the scene of people that the Digimon players that I see in my local area, they seem to be much more excited about Ghost Game than they ever were for Adventure 2020, at least towards the end. So that's, I think, a promising sign. Toya, what's your favorite bit of Digimon news from the past month?
So I am most excited to learn that Digimon Survive is not Digimon Dead. It is not canceled. They have announced that it is delayed again. And I see people complaining about this and saying on Twitter, this game will never come out. It's vaporware. And I just want you all to know that if your game has an announcement that it is delayed, that is much better than hearing nothing. Because when you hear nothing, that's when you're actually in danger of cancellation.
I just also want to point out that right before that notice came out, there were 3 signs of like rating board submission. One in Brazil, one in Australia, one in Korea. And like I think the Brazilian one actually had the 2022 date on it. So the fact that they're releasing like that update coinciding around the same time, like as the fact that they're submitting, they're putting that notice because they probably reached some kind of benchmark so that they can make that updated estimate. Because Toya, I think you were the one who told me this, that like in order to submit like something to a ratings board, you have to hit some kind of benchmark that you can make like a compilation that properly represents the game, right?
Right. You have to be able to like send video footage of the most controversial, like most ratings relevant things in the game. You don't have to send the actual game until it's already like out. The ratings boards play your game after the fact and then confirm that it was rated correctly. But like for getting your rating in the first place, you just have to like make video clips and text summaries and show like dialogue, or like if there's anything dealing with like sexuality or violence, anything like that, you have to represent that accurately to them. And I learned this because I am now a game developer.
I'm just trying to imagine what that process would be like for most Digimon games. Like, here's Digimon that throws just poop, and
But yeah, like I think the reason they put that out was because they reached a benchmark. It's because they hit like a development stage benchmark that gave them a better idea of what to aim for that they put that out. So that I think that is overall good news.
This means that they probably are at the point where they have all of the relevant story stages or sequences complete. Like if there's any cutscenes with violence in them or anything like that, which is all that stuff that happens very late in a game's development. You nail down the gameplay elements first, and then you start composing the story scenes that connect them.
Right.
Announcing a delay means that Bandai approved more money to go into the game's development and expanded their budget and timetable and set up a whole schedule. So there's no risk of this game disappearing into the ether at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those are all promising signs. I am trying to not get my hopes up high or low or anything. Like, I'm just like, okay, they said it's coming out in 22. They also said several times before that it's coming out in other years, and I'm not writing too much on any statements. I'm just gonna wait until it comes out and then hopefully play it.
The way I would put it is my stance is still it'll come out when it's ready. I'm not like, putting all my eggs in one basket, but at the same time, like I'm not going to say this is a not encouraging sign,
Yeah, it's an encouraging sign, but also we shouldn't read too much into any one signs until when that's all we have. So yeah, my bit of Digimon news is the least tangible, and it's because there's just been, I mean, the flow of Digimon, of actual like product merch and news and stuff, has not slowed down. There's still tons and tons of stuff coming out. But the thing that I have been the most endeared by, and it barely qualifies as news, is just seeing people excited about Ghost Game, and particularly so because of running the podcast Twitter account for the past lots of years, I don't remember when I started it off, but like in TweetDeck, I have a column that's just filtered anyone who is verified who mentions the word Digimon. So I've seen like over the years a weird variety of people coming in and out of that column.
Right.
And like
the fabled blue checks marks.
Yep. And like, during the Try era, there were tons of people who would like be like, oh, I watched Digimon as a kid, I'm going to watch Try. And then they never followed up on that. And who knows what happened to them. And in the like off time between Try and Adventure 2020, there were plenty of like, usually it's someone who's like mega famous, some musician I've never heard of who's like, I watched Digimon as a kid. Or someone who's like, Digimon sucks compared to Pokemon. And it's like, okay.
I get
but recently, in the past month, there have been a surprising number of people who are like legit interested in watching Ghost Game, and people, the one that I found most interesting, I tweeted about this on Twitter, so
I saw that.
Some people may have already seen it, but the English voice actor of Bakugo in My Hero Academia dub posted about watching Ghost Game and thinking that Gatomon was adorable. So when I went and saw the My Hero Academia movie in theaters the other day, the whole time, whenever Bakugo shouted something, I was like pretending he was shouting about how cute Gatomon is.
It's good.
But there's also like Yoshi Sudarso, who I don't actually know what he's most famous for. I think he was a Power Ranger.
Yeah. I know this. I know this.
I followed him for much more superficial reasons, because he's often shirtless. But anyway.
No, I know him from Power Rangers now.
He's also cast as Nightwing in some upcoming live-action adaptation of a DC thing or something. But yeah, he was tweeting about watching it, and I was like, okay, this person I don't even associate with Digimon is like famous. And
the way I would put it is, when you see, like, there was a poll even, they were asking like, how long have you been into Digimon? And like, overwhelmingly the answers are like 16 years or more. Like it's like this really really uncomfortable binary of either you like have not touched Digimon like at most since like when you were a kid and you probably watched, like you're lucky if you went all the way up to Frontier, or you have seen everything. It's like this, it's like a very clean binary, and that's actually very dangerous because when you lose fans, you're not getting more back.
We have the same problem that Facebook does, an aging population.
But I am just like, I want more people to come in. I mean, I especially want people to come in who don't have any of the baggage of the prior series, because you know, I want like a more how do I put it, diverse range of experiences among like fans. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, yeah, I want to see like more of like a proper inflow outflow in a very healthy, like in a very healthy sense. Like, you know, it makes, I'm fine if you have never seen the older series in your life, you know, like that's fine. And maybe that's a good thing because it means you're not held back by those things. Like, you know, you would be surprised. I have a much higher rate of getting people into like Cross Wars and Amon if you don't have those preconceived notions. Like, I think it's fine. And I think that's actually better.
Yeah.
And I especially think it's a good sign if Ghost Game is appealing to people who don't, you don't have to have like been following Digimon this whole time to think Ghost Game is appealing. That's really good.
Yeah, like I think at the beginning of Adventure 2020, there was a similar vibe where like a lot of people, I was seeing a lot of people who hadn't kept up with, you know, things past Tamers or things past Frontier and were able to jump back in, but not with the same level of excitement. It was kind of like, oh, I'm intrigued. I'm curious to see where this goes. But this is like, people are sold on Gamamon day one.
Thank
Yeah.
Gamamon for being so cute.
Gamamon is carrying hard. We are, you know, we are in like the beginning of a golden age for Digimon, and it's Gamamon you can thank for that.
Yeah.
He sells this anime so well.
Gamamon and expensive cardboard.
Yes.
Well, yeah, let's get into, first off, episode 1, The Stone Lip Man. We did already have a whole podcast talking about this, so I don't think we're going to have tons to revisit. But yeah, this is the episode where we met Hiro, had flashbacks to his dad disappearing. Hiro and Kotaro break into a crime scene. Kotaro is attacked, and then Hiro goes back home and finds Gamamon and then defeats Clockmon. And then he snickers and runs away into the night. I thought, in revisiting a little bit, well, I mean, I'm sad that Blacktailmon has still not shown up since this episode, because I think they're the star of the show. But I'm really curious. I mean, we got a couple other enemies like this too, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, but like, I'm curious what's going to happen with Clockmon eventually. If they're going to have to, like, are they going to have to cross a, like in Adventure Zero 2, have to eventually cross a line where they start contemplating killing Digimon or not?
Right.
Mm.
And I mean, you know, like it's, I think there is, you know, definitely going to be a point where like the pacifism is going to reach its limits, but
We've already seen that foreshadowed a bit. I mean, that's episode 3 discussion, but I think that they probably will reach a time when they come to regret not having killed a Digimon.
or at least not having done like more than they did before.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, you know, we discussed this on the last podcast. It was like, you know, in every series, really, there is you can say that pretty much every series started off with wanting to be as pacifist as possible, and then like as they were pushed further and further, it became harder to keep doing. Because Adventure was like this too. Like they fought to like as much as they could to just drive them away or drive out the black gear or whatever. But then and even like Takaru said in like episode 12, like, I don't want to fight. We're gonna find a way to solve this without like fighting, even though we're talking about Devimon. So it's like very obvious this is not going to work out. And then of course, you know, it turns out it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I think this is notable only because Hiro is making such a big deal about doing pacifism. Like he's actually like curbing the fight and saying like, stop it. Now we're going to talk this out. Like he's actually making a big deal about it. But it's not necessarily like they hadn't like killed before in the early episodes like this, you know? It's just usually the fight is more drawn out. And, you know, it's more like they like fight back violently for a little longer. But in this case, you know, we see like, you know, actually like making a huge deal about like walking forth and settling this peacefully. So
I mean, I think it's deliberate that they're going for the pacifist angle with this one, because in the previous series, the body count was already absurd, like 10 episodes in.
Compensation.
At that point, you can't walk back any of that without being like, oh God, what blood do we have on our hands?
Yeah.
I think they know that the kids are kind of coming into this series, if they've been carried over from Adventure 2020, then there's an expectation of a formula where you are going to encounter a Digimon and not say anything to it and just murder it to solve the problem of the day. And there was a deliberate moment in episode 4, right, where Gamamon tries to finish the fight, and then Hiro says no and talks it out instead.
That's 4. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like one thing I really noticed on going back and after, like, I watched these episodes that came out, and then before recording the podcast, went back and rewatched them. And the comparison that I feel like is a really apt through line to draw for the show is Doctor Who, because that is also a show with a long legacy. I mean, much longer than Digimon.
Yeah. Very long.
The kind of thing that like the hardcore fans have watched all of it, but it also is very appealing to new fans and to younger kids.
Right.
And it's something that is enjoyed by both young kids with no background with the rest of the series and older fans who have this, encyclopedic knowledge. And
Right.
is also a very spooky, well, not spooky, but like a very scary show with lots of stakes and lots of death that somehow is presented in a way that toes the line of sometimes scaring kids too much, sometimes, like crossing lines, sometimes not, and stuff.
And I will say, I am a little worried. I do hope that they are not going to push the line too far to like turn off the kids, that the lack of like violent fighting is going to be an anticlimax. Like, it's very refreshing for me as an adult, not just for Digimon, but for like watching shonen anime in general, where most things are resolved through a lot of combat.
Yeah, and a lot of combat without thinking about the stakes, or not the stakes, but the like consequences. And so it feels very refreshing to think thoroughly about the consequences.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I do hope the kids are not going to take this as an anticlimax, so please stick with it, kids. I hope you guys enjoy it. But other than that, it's also a nice message to send, really. Like, please really think about whether you really need to keep beating something up or whether you can like try and find a way out of it.
Yeah. But I think kids are surprisingly able to like take things that, like the fact that in Doctor Who episodes, like frequently a lot of side characters die. And that's something that like, if that happened in Digimon, that would like, if side characters died in Digimon, that would be like, oh my God, this is absurdly gruesome and violent.
Yeah.
But I feel like Doctor Who has sometimes even a younger demographic than Digimon. But I mean, I guess it varies, isn't it?
It does vary, yeah.
So like, I feel like all these kind of, based on the tone and mood of the show itself, it can vary. There are no hard and fast guidelines.
Right.
Like I'm sure we'll get to the knife moment in episode 4.
The knife moment.
But I think I don't think anyone would argue that watching Adventure 2020, that like them killing Digimon in the first 10 episodes is like gruesome and murder and like violent and like bloody or anything. It's just like kind of the conceit of that show.
Right.
The only other thing that stood out to me from episode 1 was I know last time we talked about the like how the Vital Bracelet as a Digivice felt. I'm curious if you have any thoughts now, seeing it more. Does it feel more or less like blatant product placement? Does that bother you less? I assume less.
I mean, I do, like I said, this is a much more complicated device than the ones we've had before, so it does kind of stand to reason they are going to have to explain it a little more than previous devices, because I got one myself, and it is a little complicated. I am going to admit that. At the same time, I don't know if because like, especially episode 4, when they were making like the difference between like the materialization of the Digimon and the difference between like creating like this pseudo AR field kind of thing, and it does allow for like showing off the wide variety of things they can do within the narrative too. And it's interesting because as a lot of people have pointed out, this is probably the first device since Sabers where like the device is very definitively man-made and not any kind of like higher power really feels like it was of any sort, feels like it was involved in the creation of this thing.
It's not the holy device.
It's not the holy device. It's not made by diginomes, and it's not like, it's none of those. It's just like a man-made, practically speaking, device that tapped into whatever is going on there. So it's interesting to see like, the fact that they're figuring this out as they go along. I feel like it's really nice how like Hiro is a curious type, so because he's curious, he pokes into things to help the audience also learn at the same time. And like the scene where like he and Ruri like trade off like information is very nice. So they're definitely working hard to gratuitously like show you how the device works, but it hasn't offended me yet. And remember, I come from Kamen Rider. I come from Precure. It still hasn't reached that level yet. So like, I have a high level of tolerance for these things before you get there.
As someone who does not have one of these and does not want one of these, this show has not made me want it anymore by watching it. I don't think it's been that heavily emphasized, especially compared to something like the Appla Drive in Atmon, which had like more stock footage associated with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like so many sequences.
I mean, I also like some things are also really subtle. Like the part where like Angoramon was going into her phone and out, which is probably a reference to being able to load the app. I mean, the app, load the Digimon into the app, but like that's very subtle.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've seen anyone else make this connection, so it might just be my own. I'm the one who's making the connection, but like when the fact that they like the kids seem to like magically hear and like get an idea of an attack and then they call it out and the Digimon does the attack, that feels very reminiscent to how in it's not in the Battle Bracelet itself, but when the Digimon from the Battle Bracelet are in the app and you do an arena battle or raid battle, there's kind of like a gauge that fills and you have to like tell them when to attack, and it feels like
Yeah.
a similar kind of vibe of like telling them when to attack, kind of.
Right.
But yeah, I think I was the one who was the most like quote unquote offended by the product placement of it, and like it's not like I was offended or found it gratuitous in any way, but it's more just like you're saying about how man-made it feels. Like all the Digivices have felt so very like fantasy first and real life toy second, and so the fact that it's like no, it's obviously a real life toy, and here it is in the show. Just felt no, it's obviously a real life toy, and here it is in the show. Just felt off to me at first, but I'm getting used to it now, and it doesn't really feel weird the more I'm used to it. So
I mean, again, I watch Kamen Rider, and then they have it like their key devices is like these giant intrusive noise making neon plastic things that hang off the belt. Once you've gotten to that point, like you can tolerate a lot of things.
Yeah, and it doesn't say like app realize.
I mean, it's fun, but yeah, it's not that intrusive.
Jeff, if you think this current era of product placement is bad, let me tell you, one day, like it is a matter of time before we get an anime about a bunch of kids playing a free-to-play smartphone game on their phones on television, and then telling you at the end of every episode to download the free app from the App Store.
Toya.
Isn't that Shadowverse?
Yeah, the Shadowverse anime. Toya.
They don't tell you to do it at the end of the episode, and also they don't roll on screen. Maybe in the first episode, I think, of the original they might have, but that series was very bad as an advertisement, okay?
Yeah, I still don't know who that was targeted at. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, on to episode 2, The Mystery of the Museum. There's a mummy. Gamamon dressed up like a mummy was adorable. Loved it.
Oh, so cute.
Toilet paper Gamamon.
I mean, we got the debut of Beetle Gamamon.
Woo!
He's cool.
He's still baby-faced, even as an adult, which I think is really cute.
He looks like an adolescent Gamamon. This is not an adult form. This is teenage form.
Oh, no. Baby-faced Gamamon. I guess... I think we talked about this in the show. I don't remember if it was offline or if it was on the show, but I guess the fact that the museum was the Ueno Museum means that the theory that it's in Hokkaido has been debunked.
Yes, it is in Tokyo. It was in Tokyo the whole time.
All of Gamamon's interactions at the grocery store, brilliant, A+.
Okay, I really loved how this episode was. It was like a reconstruction of the Digimon virtual pet treatment aspect where you are feeding and caring for them. And that is something that the anime never really tries to represent.
I just like how it kind of like, how do I put it? I like how this anime like treasures the importance of cute is how I call it. Like the importance of cute and precious. And like, that's very important when your anime is a horror one and you don't want to turn people off if you're too suffocating, especially when you are a Sunday morning kids show, and especially when you really need to get as many people as possible on a concept that's so unique. It makes sure that like it stops, takes a breather, shows you something really cute or really soft, and before it goes back to like horror scenarios. And I really appreciate that. Like especially when I was doing the fabled every first episode of every Digimon series marathon, I noticed that it's actually there's not a lot of Digimon series that appreciate that enough. And I wonder if those were things that like led to being potential turnoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Hiro writing down all of Gamamon's words to like figure out which ones correspond to which. He's raising a toddler right now.
I really appreciate the fact that like, they are going out of their way to make sure like Hiro is like genuinely invested in this, like, and not even like forcing Gamamon to learn human words, which is like, okay, I'm going to meet him halfway, so he uses this word for this.
Yeah, I also, speaking of product placement, like if they want to make that Gamamon dictionary a real thing, yes, absolutely,
I would buy it.
Also, I love in the way Hiro treats Gamamon, the way, not to make too many Tamers comparisons, but like the way that he starts to go out the door and just ask Gamamon if he can go to the door, and that's also when we first see Gamamon's wings. It's just him just casually flying over to the door because he's lazy, and Hiro is immediately like, "Oh, I can't leave him here." Like just running circles around Takato, dealing with Gamamon. Like
really Exactly though. Like Hito, they do a lot to demonstrate like Hito like thinks through like everything.
The fact that Gamamon would not realize he could go out of the room until Hiro asked him to try and open the door. Like, okay, this is how you don't raise a dog, by the way. This is definitely how one of my dogs escaped as a puppy. Figured out she could open doors.
I made the joke that like voice actor jokes aside, really like Hito is basically if somebody with like the disposition of Koshiro became a protagonist. Like someone who is like significantly more analytical and thinks through everything and like a little, is like more on the protagonist level. Kind of like Haru was like kind of like Ken, except with someone with the disposition of Ken, except in the protagonist role. It's kind of like that.
I also loved in this episode the way that, like, in the confrontation with Mummymon, the whole time Hiro is just listening to the words he's using and, like, thinking through, like, how his words don't seem like they fit. And then, like, realizes he's acting like a doctor just from listening to him closely. Like, that was so... Okay, wait. Pausing my sentence midway to reveal that there was actually a second rule that I didn't describe, which is another cursed word that if we mention it 3 times, someone will appear. And I'm about to mention it, so I apologize. But it was so far from Adventure 2020. Anyway, so just so far from like how none of the episodic villains talked or bad guys. And in the series, not only are they talking, but they're talking with clues that help you defeat them or like help come to terms with them. Yeah. And it also was the thing that I remember getting really not excited about, but like the potential I saw in the episode where Taichi talked to, oh god, what's his name? Argamon, whatever.
Argamon, yeah.
And like I was like, some of these things that Argamon is saying sound weird and sound off. I wonder if it's going to mean anything. It's like, no, didn't mean anything. And this is like, no. Things sound a little weird. They mean something. Hiro notices. Hiro is curious. Hiro like actually is asking the questions the audience is asking.
Yep.
It's great. Yeah.
This season has a brain.
Hey, my friend who's like really getting into it, like she even said like this show is requiring more brain capacity out of me than I'm used to with kids shows.
Yeah, I do feel like
I don't think you have to use it to follow it, but you see like so many things that you know are going to be important later that like you start looking for it.
There were a couple things. Maybe this is a good transition to episode 3 because I feel like, I mean, I really liked episode 3, but I think there were a couple signs where I was like, I'm not, especially rewatching some actions, I was kind of like confused by what was actually going on in a way that I don't think really distracted too much when I first watched it, but it is a little bit troubling. But also like episode 3, at first I really liked for talking about the materialization mechanics and thought that was a really cool, especially because we have a villain of the week who that's his goal is to materialize, and so it's a very natural way to bring it up and discuss it. And I love that he wanted to steal the Digivice, and then and I almost said Hiro is like, here, I'll give it to you, and then it's like, you can't actually hold it, what are you doing? And like outsmarted him, but then Dracomon outsmarted him, like a lot of smartly written outsmarting of each other. But the more I sat on it, the more I'm like, I don't think the rules of materialization make any sense as we've been told them so far. Like in these first 4 episodes, none of the enemy Digimon materialize, and yet Clockmon is able to interact with humans by stealing their time, hitting them with a hammer or whatever. Mummymon is able to pick up Digimon with his bandages. Dracomon is able to possess people, and Pumpmon is able to put pumpkins on people, and also the minions are able to like inhabit pumpkins.
Yeah, my impression was that there is a limited degree they can interfere, especially if it's due to like their like actual powers interfering. But like, I mean, this is supposed to be like a parallel to like ghosts, right? So it's like, ghosts can walk through people. Ghosts cannot fully like interact with the world, but there is some way they can influence it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. If it's more like vague and like, it's not explicitly outlined exactly how it works, but that's how ghosts are. It's not scientific. It's not rigid rules.
The frustrating thing for someone who can't materialize is that they can't do everything, and especially can't be seen. And so there's enough motive to like want the full hog, if that makes sense.
Well, actually, on the can't be seen part, I am confused with that because like Clockmon couldn't be seen by Hiro until he got the Digivice, but like Mummymon, there were reports of people seeing the mummy. But I guess it's like you're saying, like the being able to touch, like maybe it's just he's seeable, he's visible sometimes and not always.
Right. And like also like I think the bandages were implied to be visible, even because Mummymon was not.
Mummymon never touched anybody that his bandages weren't touching. So when he cocooned somebody like that enabled him to touch them, and it was only after he picked them up that somebody else would see him that didn't have a vital bracelet. And then in episode 4, wait, weren't the minions interacting with the world through the Cosmo bots?
Yeah, they were using the Cosmo hologram, presumably because they could not do it without something like a medium like that.
But I thought they were just like in those little jack-o'-lantern dolls.
No, the dolls were on top of the bots, I thought.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
So, but even if it was on the hologram directly, like the point, the idea that there has to be some kind of medium is like, that's the same for ghosts too, right? Like oftentimes they
Yeah.
need some kind of like object or medium to like be able to interact because they can't be seen directly.
Yeah, Jeff, haven't you had an exorcism in your apartment recently?
Oh, I didn't schedule my yearly exorcism. Oops. I guess I must have too many ghosts.
It's Halloween. You got to get in there with like a vacuum cleaner and
Oh, go get the beans.
I need to get my Luigi's Mansion vacuum cleaner. Yeah, so okay, yeah, I guess thinking that's a good way of framing it. Thinking about it more as ghostly and spooky. I almost hesitate using that word. I
Strike
think
one.
we have two more. It makes more sense. I was thinking about it too scientifically. Although I'm curious if you noticed, I feel like every time Kyoshiro has shown up in these episodes, he's been drawn a little bit weird. I'm a little bit worried. I feel like, I don't know, maybe his design nothing about his design seems like it should be drawn weird, but like
We'll
I
see.
don't know.
We'll
he's
see.
already dead.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Okay,
No
okay,
clairvoyance. He's already dead.
Yeah. I am on the one hand glad I don't think I've seen anyone complain or be put off by Angoramon silently and invisibly protecting / stalking Ruli. But I found it a little uncomfortable. I don't know.
If you didn't complain about Renamon, actually no, you know what? Ruki already knew Renamon was there. But
Yeah.
Digimon have been characterized as like protectors before guardian angels.
I mean,
If you're uncomfortable with Angoramon protecting Ruli, you have to be then uncomfortable with your guardian angel following you into the bathroom.
Well, it's possible he didn't even go that far. It's just like he hangs around sometimes, listens to her piano, and like makes sure that like things like Dracumon aren't like going out to get her. But like they never said that he like follows her literally everywhere.
Yeah. So it could be very benign. It could be just while she's playing piano and that one time when Hiro saw him walking in the street. But,
especially because she was being targeted. Everybody knew she was being targeted by that point.
Right. So yeah. I don't know. I guess that scenario is done with. They are like in mutual agreement now. They like each other. She even said like, she called him out and was like, "Stop being invisible. I'll play for you.
Just show yourself."
You don't have to be invisible."
Mofu,
so,
mofu.
like, and he's cute and cuddly. So if that scenario kept going, I'd be concerned and worried. But
right,
it's over. It's done with.
The power of fluffy boys makes it all okay.
Yeah,
that's the lesson. If you want to be a stalker, just be fluffy.
The other thing is that they implied that he had a particular rivalry with Dracumon, and so it may not really have been that much about her specifically, although the piano was a bonus. But it does imply that like he had a particular like rivalry with that one.
And I guess like the concept of ghosts is inherently creepy and stalkery. So like like those kind of like icky vibes are part of the formula.
Yeah.
Even though Clockmon got away also in the first episode, with the highlighting of Dracumon here and his statements at the end of the episode, where he just like very briefly talks to himself and to the viewer, I feel like he's being set up to be our recurring villain this season, and that they are really going to regret not being more violent with him later.
It definitely sounded like that was going somewhere.
Yeah. I always think I didn't get really like big, broad, season arching stuff.
Yeah, I don't know about season arching, but I do feel like that's not going to be the end of it.
Yeah, for sure. But like, yeah, I mean, Clockmon, like, it's totally understandable they like let him go because it was Hero's first experience with what's going on, and like they don't know what they're doing. But like, it's interesting. This is like intentional letting him go.
And like Clockmon was also like, "Oh, screw you all," and like running off because obviously it was disadvantaged. But like Dracumon was like, I am going to keep doing this. Like statement of intent submitted right there.
Also, like the effects of what Clockmon did in the first episode were horrifying, and they sent people to the hospital. But this was the first episode where not only was like in the second episode they alluded to characters potentially dying from the Digimon's actions, but that was an unintentional thing on Mumimon's part. In this episode, they have a character saying she's going to die, and Dracumon likes that.
Yeah.
So he wants to kill people.
I also love the moment when Hiro is trying like teasing with the Digivice, and he says that you need a human to actually use it, and he's like, I can find any human to, like, there are plenty of bad humans in the world, and it's like, Oh, I mean, I'm not banking on that happening, but like, it's very possible.
I would like to see more of the concept of like less than virtuous humans, like kind of semi pseudo partnering consciously or unconsciously with the Digimon and like causing a lot of these problems because it happens in like this kind of like spiritual channeling anime. It happened in Savers, it happened in Cyber Sleuth, and it happened in Giga no Kitaro 2018. So uh it would be it would be interesting to see like more of those plot lines.
And this has been a very cyber sleuth like anime.
Yeah, Cyber Sleuth for kids.
Each episode, the episodes do feel like individual quests you could find at the detective agency bulletin board.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Which is, I mean, that's a great format. So I'm glad it lives on. But I think I even brought it up in episode 1 that I was concerned and worried about the spelling of Ruli. And I was like, oh, it doesn't seem right. It's totally grown on me. Like I think I prefer it over spelling it in English with 2 R's.
That's awkward for me because I'm saying it as duty. So so it's just weird for me, especially because the name is a kanji. So like that's why it's like really weird for me. But like I'm not gonna begrudge other people for sticking for official. It's just like I'm used to seeing people using different romanizations for me all the time. So I'm just gonna whatever. But yeah,
I feel like it. I guess I just feel like pronouncing 2 R's like that for most English speakers is awkward and a little bit like a weird thing to say. So like I feel like Ruli feels it comes off the tongue for most English speakers better.
yeah. But because I use the hard R, so the L gets even harder.
I'm still against it, but it's just a strange name, especially for like a Japanese name to be romanized like this.
In kanji. That's the thing. It's not like a representation of an English word. That's the weird part. I'm still wondering why they picked that choice, but maybe we'll find out later. I don't know, but
I mean, it's not for people who aren't as savvy in Japanese or kanji. Like, it's not. There's nothing wrong about translating it as an L or an R, but it's definitely inconsistent in the same name. It's being translated transliterated 2 different ways.
Yeah.
And are there any like really famous Ruris that are like
no,
or like to English speaking audiences?
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think generally speaking, when you see like a name like Duty, so Duty means lapis lazuli. So like, I guess the li comes from like the lapis lazuli, but like,
I feel like it just comes from being more pronounceable in English.
Is it?
I think it is. I think
okay. I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like 2 R's is a bit of a rural juror situation where it kind of all blends together.
Again, like I grew up using hard R's all the time, so it's like
there are some like actual actresses and idols with the name Ruri. So like that's what's weird about it for me, that this is like a real name somebody could have, and if a real person had this name, it would never be rendered Ruli in English.
Whatever. We'll find out. We'll find out if there's a reason for it later.
Yeah.
It's actually an anagram.
Well, I mean, she does have a social networking service, the Didurun, based on her name. So they write it as Liverun in English, but like, I don't know.
It's an anagram for realistic, utilitarian, legendary intelligence, and she's actually an AI.
Okay, we're stopping there.
I can't say what it is because this is like confidential information, but there is an upcoming anime with a character's name that is a controversial romanization of that name, and I heard information from like secret information that it had to be romanized a certain way because of some reveal that's coming later that has still not been revealed. And anyway, so that happens. That definitely happens.
It does happen. Yes.
I doubt it's in this case though. But I recently came to terms with. I've been watching Atmon from the beginning again, rewatching it the first time, and I thought that watching with subtitles that say Astora would really trip me up, but I've gotten used to it. Like I don't think it's that bad anymore.
Well, I think I understand the reasoning for it on that case because it's supposed to be a pun on his name, Torajiro, right?
Right.
So that's the reason for doing that. So like, I don't personally use that romanization because it bothers me, but like I completely understand the reason why, so it doesn't like irritate me or anything. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I will call people to do is to like, for these things that are like controversial choices but aren't actually wrong, to not get mad at anyone,
Yeah, don't get mad at anyone because in Digimon we've come to like people using like different romanizations for names all the time. So I think most people have been pretty chill about it. Like we've dealt with like Hoshiro and Joe having like 3 different romanizations each all the time, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
However, if you use different romanizations from me, you are wrong.
Okay.
I mean, you use... I'm looking at 2 different interfaces where you've romanized your name 2 different ways. So...
That was to make me harder to find on Discord.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I think that's everything I have for episode 3. So episode 4, this is the one that just aired yesterday.
Woo!
Halloween episode. I'll just get this off the bat. This is my least favorite of the 4, I think.
Really?
Unfortunately.
I mean, one of the reasons why I'm glad we're doing episodes in batches, because I'm not really sure if I should be comparing episodes to each other at this point, because, you know, this one had, even though the actual, like, plot and resolution was, like, kind of a copy of the Mummymon one, where it's, like, you know, the same thing. Okay, you know, they pursue an enemy that's not, like, trying to do something for completely malicious reasons, and they sort it out at the end, you know, that's fine. But, like, the main plot purpose of this one overall is to introduce Nudi's dynamic with Hiro and how they would start working together, and what they learn more about, like, you know, the digital world stuff and all that. So, like, I consider those things to be very important. So I'm kind of, like, rating it on that, like, the overall importance in the rest of the narrative. Like, yeah, this is a really important episode, because, like, we, you know, at the time of, like, the last episode, she was still a stranger to him, and now we're going to get more of an idea of, like, how they're going to continue interacting and what Hiro could learn from Angoramon.
Yeah, and I guess on that angle, I thought that the stuff that they learned about, like, the Digivice mechanics and having a little 5-minute micro lecture from Angora Sensei was great. Like, I mean, the lore that he talked about, that I mean, the mentioning of Digimon originating from an online virus, apparently that is lore from the original VPETs.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to, like, 1996.
Yep, that's OG of OG lore.
And the phrasing of it, like a computer virus spontaneously developing artificial intelligence, that is actually something that it used to be on the Digimon channel website. The old one, back when that was up for years, it was like on the main page. I discovered this when I was going through the Internet Archive. I went through all the different years for it, for my Digimon history articles that ended up tragically unfinished.
You know how the reboot was kind of, like, trying to be, like, advertising, like, the elements of the encyclopedia that hadn't really been used in the anime up until now, but, like, trying to be, like, super loyal to, like, encyclopedia lore. I do feel like, even though it's not, like, trying to aggressively be an advertisement of the encyclopedia the way the reboot was, Ghost Game still does have more insistence on adhering to, like, the null canon than previous, like, Digimon series would be. So I have been getting that vibe.
Yeah.
This was also the first episode we got the Digimon Analyzer back, right?
Right, because Angoramon is your analyzer this series.
Yeah, so we have the Analyzer back, we have the Digimon lore setting, we have Ruli discovering that Hiro is, like, I don't know, training to one day be a male wife or something, just doing everything he's told.
Yeah, we get a bit of spotlight on that, and, like, my timeline was actually saying, like, I'm really worried about Hiro right now.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, like, noticed, like, oh, like, even she's caught on, like, that he's, like, a doormat.
She's like, oh, I can make him do whatever I want. Okay, great.
That could be very dangerous later, so.
But this episode, this was, like, a really intense, visceral horror plot. There were bodies being dragged away.
When they got to the infamous scene where the knife is, like, 2 centimeters away from Hiro's face,
Yeah.
like, the first thing I screamed was, if this were to be dubbed, I don't know if the American networks would allow this uncensored.
Yeah, this would be this.
They would cut that scene.
You would get edited.
And I feel like it would work pretty well with just that one shot cut out. So, like,
Yeah, it would work fine, but just, like, I was just like, yeah, there's no way that would end up on an American network untouched. I don't think there would be.
They would, I don't know, blur the knife.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was just thinking, like, wow, did I just watch that? Oh, that was aired on TV. Okay.
There are some actual horror movie writers probably watching and being like, oh, I should use this for my Halloween movie next year, but make the knife actually go into his face.
Oh, God.
No, yeah, like, this is something that the actual idea of being inside a jack-o'-lantern while it's being carved is, like, fantastic A+ idea that is, like, horrifying and creepy, and they don't think they needed to actually have the knife in Hiro's face to illustrate that, but, like,
Oh, boy, it slammed at home.
So yeah, I think that is, like I was saying, like, comparing to Doctor Who, I feel like this is one of those cases where maybe it went too far and shouldn't have gone that far, but, like,
It worked, though.
I mean, I was wondering if this was going to be our first, like, this guy isn't redeemable, he's just crazy, we have to kill him episode, where they'd, like, take the pumpkins off his victims and find their faces all bloody or something.
I mean, I'm worried that, like you were saying about, they're clearly building to something with, or it seems like they have to build something with Hiro being, like, taking on too many burdens for everyone.
Yeah.
But also just, like, he's been through so much trauma. Like, he's been wrapped, he's been, you know, like, in bandages left to die, he's been in a pumpkin left to die. Like,
One thing I do appreciate, though, especially with 3 and 4 and introducing Ruri, is that they did increasingly make it clear that Hiro is not going to handle it all by himself. And this was especially something I appreciated about 3, and that 3 started entirely from Ruri's perspective. And the reason why it's so stressful at the beginning is because, like, for the first 2 episodes, you understand Hiro's the one who is most equipped to handle any of these things. So he did like an incredible job handling the 1 and 2. So you think like, okay, he's going to be, if Hiro comes in, like everything's going to be taken care of. But you go a whole half an episode without even like a sign of him. And it gets really stressful because you think like they're like the person who can really like help her is nowhere to be seen. And it keeps building up. And then finally he does come into the picture, but then he becomes one of Drakumon's victims. And you realize like there was a limit to how long Hiro can keep handling this by himself. And especially because he's the kind of person who emotionally isolates other people. So it kind of felt like he was trying to handle this himself as much as possible without burdening other people. But it turns out, you know, when you look at 3 and 4, there was only that was not going to last.
Yeah, and like 2 even well, when I was rewatching these episodes, I noticed that like it's an uncomfortable dynamic of how like I feel like even in that flashback we got to Hiro and his dad, like he was basically the mom already. And now like getting Gamamon, he's like there's a line when Gamamon first talks and says like take care of me, and Hiro says like you want me to take care of you too? And I wasn't sure if that was like referring to how his dad said take care of him and then also Gamamon said take care of me, or if it was referring to like I was already taking care of my dad, now I have to take care of my little brother too or something.
Like he's being dumped on a lot. He's used to being dumped on. And
then in episode 2, the whole reason he gets captured by Mummymon is that he's exhausted. So it's like I'm glad that in episode 3 and 4 he seems like, even though there are foreshadowing of like maybe he's taking on too much still, it's like he has a partner in Ruli. Like it's not all on him anymore.
And like the really interesting part was fun part to me is like, you know, I think, you know, if, you know, I mentioned earlier that, like, if Gamamon had not been introduced as his little brother, Hiro probably would, like, not have been willing to, like, emotionally open up to, like, anything regarding him, because he's so, like, trying to be self-reliant that he just doesn't open up to other people. So one thing I noticed about 3 is that, I think this probably came across in the translation, but like Hiro starts off using really like polite, detached language with Ruri. He even switches his personal pronoun from ore to book when he talks to Ruri, because she's a stranger to him. And he keeps this level of distance. He only calls her Tsukiono-san. And I was wondering if this was going to keep up. And in 4, he keeps calling her Tsukiono-san. And then, you know, we all saw the scene. She insists, like, I'm going to call you Hiro from now on, so you call me Ruri, right? So she wants to be friends. Like, she wants to maintain, like, a friendly relationship. And she was dumping everything on him, and he was saying, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. But then when she says, okay, now but I want you to call me Ruri, and she leaves, he actually gets tripped up. He's like, so he can take like all these like ridiculous like tasks and requests and stuff, but when someone says I want to be better friends with you, he gets tripped up. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and that scene I feel like was a good moment of the two of them interacting. But I was a little bit, I don't know, like not disappointed, but like weirdly let down by all the Ruli stuff in episode 3 and 4, where like in episode 2 and a little bit tiny bit in 1, but in episode 2 especially, we got like her being so excited about investigating these phenomena that like it made sense in 3 because she's being haunted and it's like terrifying her. But then in 4 it seemed like it was neither, there was no like quote unquote excuse anymore, that she wasn't being like personally, well I guess her friends disappeared, so I guess that is actually a pretty good excuse.
Yeah, her friends disappeared. Also, like I do think like there's a difference between like when you don't have to worry about it and then when you realize what it actually entails. Like,
yeah, but I guess I was looking forward to the fun of her being like a popular social media, you know, like almost true crime podcaster for
yeah. But I do think like once you really realize like what's actually going on, it's like you can't really afford to be reckless anymore.
Yeah, I hope there is like a middle ground though, where like she is still excited to investigate these things,
right,
but without being reckless, like without like standing in front of a mummy and being like move.
Oops.
Which also that moment felt relatable, because that's very similar to the motion I have to make my vital bracelet think I'm doing exercise. So yeah.
I think I said it before, but I really liked the moment with Betel Gamamon gearing up to keep attacking after Pumpmon was already down, and then Hiro telling him to stop.
Yeah, I can't tell if that the primary goal of that scene was to show us that Hiro is so analytical, or if it was to show that Gamamon has some bloodthirst that they're.
No, I got the impression it was more on like Hiro, like because I think like that it is normal to like want to keep fighting, like because Hiro had to like catch the exact moment that it looked like. And I think the reason he caught on was because Pumpmon was crying.
Yeah.
So like Hiro has to like spot little details like, okay, this is the time we can maybe draw back.
Yeah.
But Hiro, my theme music is playing.
It's true. The theme music seemed like it ended a little too quickly. But...
They needed to have like a record scratch right there.
There was actually there's a moment that I thought was really great in this episode. I think we got a question asking specifically about music, so I'm going to hold that. But yeah, I mean, so when I say this episode was my least favorite of the four, like it's more like, oh, this felt like an average episode. Like it still gave us, glimpses of interesting lore things, but like wasn't one that, like on its own really, really excited me. And I think it's in the broad sense exciting me, because it's like even when it's a duller episode, it's still good. But like I think I went into it with expectations because
the first three.
It was like the whole series is Halloween adjacent, and then there's a Halloween episode that's airing on Halloween in Japan. We're recording a podcast on Halloween. The Atmon Halloween episode just a couple of years. Oh my god, 5 years ago. I was gonna say just
5 years ago.
Just a couple years ago.
5 years ago.
But the Atmon Halloween episode, which was also episode 4. Is that right?
I think that was 5. Was it? No. Yeah, you're right. I think that was also 4. Yeah.
I rewatched it recently, and like that one is like one of my favorite Atmon episodes. And had so much fun.
That's a good one.
And this one was like, it was effectively very spooky, but I don't know, not so much fun.
One of these days you're going to be like, Digimon Frontier wasn't that long ago, and it's going to be 2030.
Well, I think it's, a good thing, like, overall in the whole package that, like, you consider this a slightly weaker episode, but it's still pretty good. And it's like, I think it's really nice that Ghost Game has had such a head start, like a good start, especially when the franchise is in such a, like, desperate position like this. Because I was talking to this earlier, but it is, when, in terms of sheer getting somebody to stick from episode 1 to the final episode, it is better to have a strong start than a weak start and a stronger ending. Because... if you have a weak start and a stronger ending, everybody's going to be like, oh, this is a really good series, but that's only if you're in the small population that stuck it out all the way to the end. Because you really need to have like a strong start. Even if it somehow like ends up bad in the end, most people will still watch it all the way to the end because of the sunk cost they got from the first beginning. So I think it's really good that we are starting off this well, and a lot of people are really enjoying every single episode so far. So, I will take it as a good sign.
Yeah.
I don't know where to fit this in, but Cosmo-kun reminded me a lot of Navito-kun from Cyber Sleuth.
Oh.
Navito-kun. Don't trust weird, like, I don't know, weird mascot robots, I guess.
If you have not played Hacker's Memory, please, for the love of God, play Hacker's Memory. It has the best use of Navito-kun I could possibly come up with.
That was the only moment I could think of, but I only have such vague memories of it. I'm like, that really happened, right?
That did really happen.
That really happened.
That really happened.
I love the screenshot manipulation that happened with that quest. If you do not know what we were talking about, go play Hacker's Memory. I think it's on sale still.
Yes.
Do you have any more thoughts on episode 4?
I really liked this episode. Actually, I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum from you, Jeff, in that I liked this one the best of them because there was such a counterbalance between...
Want to go?
We're gonna box. Gonna fight it out like Masaru and Toma.
Oh god.
But I liked the contrast between like Gamamon being a head pet to Angoramon Sensei, and then the horrific sequence of Pumpmon carving Hiro's face.
I guess the other thing I didn't love about it is that I feel like a lot of the runtime was spent on the building up the spooky, like, mystery of what was going on without the kids knowing about it going on. So like it was more for the viewers' benefit than the kids.
Well, that's fair. I don't know. I didn't really have an opinion on that.
I was like, oh, what actually happened in this episode? And it's like, it's mostly all the one scenario, because like half the episode's runtime is spent on spooky scenes. And yeah, I mean, they worked, but wasn't the most personally exciting. Unlike Gachmon in a pumpkin suit.
Give me sweets! Give me sweets!
And riding around on his tricycle, demanding to get candy.
I will say that, I really appreciated Gashmon's presence back in Atmon, because I realized, it is really hard to keep pacing in a show. And like Atmon has been criticized for this, that like, it takes so long for the full party to join. And in this series, they do seem to be taking some cues from Atmon and how slowly they are introducing the main party. Like, Kiyoshi's not joining until next week. It may be next week by the time this gets posted, but Kiyoshi's not joining yet. But the fact that like the spooky is happening every episode, and that like it really does feel some like tense stakes, really does help keep it from feeling slow.
Yeah, and I think that like I really did not like that slow start to Atmon. Not in that
Yeah.
like as much as I liked episode 4, which is the last solo Haru and
Yes,
Gachimon
it
one, I
is the
believe.
last one.
So like I loved episode 4, but like by the end of episode 4, I was like, oh my god, it's so much hard. Is this just going to be the Haru and
Yeah,
Gachimon show forever? And so like this one, I feel like I never got that vibe at all. Like having Ruli be in the background and then like foreground in episode 3. Like
Kyoshiro pops in every so often too, just to remind you that he's like running around screaming.
just to remind you that he's the most extra.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're doing a much better job doing the execution at slow start. And like I said, it is really important that you start off really well because unfortunately, other than the concept being a hard sell, one of the hardest things to get around with Atmon is that the beginning is so slow. And so I am glad it's not making that the same mistake.
I still have that ringtone sitting around somewhere that's just
Oh, no.
gachi 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 gachi, despite never actually using ringtones.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ringtones don't exist anymore. Well, let's move on to some
Forward reviews.
Yeah,
forward
you
reviews.
increased the character limit.
Yeah, so quick shout out to Andriarno on Discord who had the idea for this format tweak since we're going to be covering, 4 times as many episodes that the normal 3-word review might be a little bit tight. So we're trying it out this week or this month. We'll see how it goes. So we asked everyone for 4-word reviews.
Yay!
And eventually we'll move on to doing entire 13 episode cores in our episodes, and we'll have 13-word reviews.
Okay.
And then we're just going to make our own social network that people use only to submit reviews of Digimon episodes. First off, at Meg Hanadramon, Fitbit mascots exercise exorcisms.
That's clever. I like that.
It's clever and a good mouth. A mouth. What's that called? Mouthful? Mouthful.
Mouthful.
Not mouthfeel. Mouthful.
At Translationmon, Gamamon is the champion.
He is Saikyo.
He is Saikyo.
Oh, like the chocolate. Okay, yeah.
Saikyo.
At Gigaridramon, a kids show. Okay.
Andrew Softman said, "Hey, kids, murder time?"
At Bored Individual said, Hiro takes a digi beating.
At Dak in Jackster said, gives me good vibes.
At Andy Lucas OE said, "Who you gonna call?"
At NNN Podcast, Digimon are champions again.
At Austin LC23, intriguing, adorable, sweet, terrifying.
And at PDX Anime said, "Digimon love casual murder."
At Cure Hibiscus, Digimon traumatize me weekly.
At CC Takato, flying Angoramon is best.
And this one is a mystery that we can leave off on. Joseph Nosef said, "I pumpkin pied myself." Okay.
Sure.
Well,
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, and I don't know if I want to know.
At Joseph Snows, if I'm blocking you.
Wow.
Stranger danger.
Well, on to some listener comments and questions. First off, at Gigary Dramon said, "I'm usually annoyed when Digimon doesn't follow the power level formula, but seeing how Hiro and company are only fighting to bring the Digimon to their senses, I really enjoy this take, and how they already broke the chain by having Dracmon swear vengeance against them. Is he the new Impmon?"
I don't know if he's going to be super recurring like Impmon was, but I do feel like that is definitely going to come back later. And I do also think that if it ever comes back to the idea of having like these allies come back, like these old friends come back, it'll be very helpful to have like more powerful friends on their side that they made friends with just by like sheer befriending.
Yeah, and I'm kind of intrigued by like what's going to happen if there are several of these non-friends that are left out there. Like maybe they could team up or something.
Yep.
Like yeah, and it's interesting. Like I think this is a interesting thing we can look back at each time that we're 4 episodes in. We have 1 enemy who is fully at large, Clockmon, 2 who are now friends, Mummymon and Puppmon, and 1 who is pretending to be a friend but is still planning to plan just as many tricks, which is Dracomon. So I'm curious to see how that will evolve over the course of the season. If most of them are going to be friends, most of them are going to be at large. I don't know. I hope they mostly make friends.
For some reason, I just get the vibe from him that, like, have you two played Final Fantasy VI?
I haven't played it, but I watched the Let's Play. Does that count?
I get like a Kefka vibe. Not like in the clown sense, but like he's a minor early antagonist with the potential to reappear. That like I feel like it would be a huge impact if they took a character like this and kind of sprung it on us later in the season that they end up becoming really important to the overall plot as they become a bigger antagonist, but don't actually change their motivation from what it was at the start. So they end up being really petty.
Precure and Sentai have done that before, so I wouldn't be too surprised.
I'm not like heavily invested in the idea. I just get that vibe from the character, and especially the way that they present it, that he's much more threatening in his episode than Mummy-wan was even. And they didn't dwell on the others at the end like they did with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see Digimon being so coy. Like Impmon was like there from day one.
Right.
Yeah.
In a way that I guess that's what I come to expect from Digimon, but I guess it's totally possible they go this route.
Again, I think I can say this because I watch Nitiasa, so like I've seen Precure and Sentai do it like multiple times, so it is capable of doing it. I think, I'm not gonna say it's going to per se, but it is capable. Yes.
And Dracmon was a common guess for like the key art that has a mysterious face in the background, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think it's still unclear what that is, but it could be Dracmon. Yeah. Well, Meg Hanjamon said, "Don't know if I'm alone on this. Haven't heard anyone else speak about it, but I really like the Digimon being different genders to their partners. Had this been 2003, I feel Jellymon would have been with Ruli and Angoramon with Kyo. Not that Jerry and Lee don't exist, but the designs of the Digimon feel contradictory to what we've had before in contrast to their partners. Jellymon especially feels contradictory for what focus groups / marketing execs would approve for boys' toys. Or is that just me thinking this way?"
So personally, like, the thing is, a lot of it depends on how like the relationship between the Digimon and the partner has changed. With the nature of the relationship has changed with every series. So sometimes you have them being like more like, like in Adventure, it was like literally a part of your brain. So like people have commented, Adventure feels like the ones with the partners are almost like completely subservient to the humans, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like they're literally part of their head. So it's kind of like they're super, super mentally like Tamers, kind of broke that idea and said like they're more like separate consciousnesses. But then at the same time, there is a subservient sense because they're called Tamers. Like, I mean, they use that for the whole franchise, but in Tamers, like that was like the strongest sentiment, and it's varied, across the board. Crosswords, there's just like none of that sentiment at all in the first place. So when I was talking this about my friend, I have the feeling that like we've had female human and masculine Digimon partner before several times, as you said, that was Judy and Miyako. My personal suspicion is actually the reason why we haven't had that reversed, partially because of some degree of market, but I think the reason after like 20, 25 years or so, like even in like side material, like games, that they've been so hesitant to do that, because if they are not careful with this, they're going to have a female partner that is super subservient to a male master, and that's not going to look good. So you have to be really careful about how you execute this. And like you look at Kiyoshiro's profile, and you look at like, Jellymon's profile, and it does look like they have some attention to make sure they don't like have like bad implications coming out of this. So like, and I think like they need to play this in a way where it does seem like you don't seem to have like that kind of implication coming out of it. I like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, if you don't play this right, like people are gonna get really mad at you. So I do kind of feel like they had to be like really careful with like how they portray that power dynamic up until now. And so I am glad to see that they are finally like attempting it.
We did have a situation where there was a male master over a female partner, but it was a reversal of normal where the Digimon was in charge, and it was Cross Wars. It was one of the villains. Yeah. And that was high impact when that happened, but it was purposeful, not like incidental. You don't want to accidentally do that.
Because you have to be really careful, like in a series like this where there's like playing with power dynamics and that kind of thing. So you got to be really careful about that.
Yeah, like the Angoramon Ruli dynamic reminds me a lot of the Jerry and Leomon dynamic. It just not like there's actually no. I was gonna say because it's more like a bigger brother, but then like Jerry took that very romantically. So
yeah, she had a direction with that. She had a direction with that.
We've all seen the statue.
In this series, that they don't seem to be mentally linked. They just seem to have more like a very distinct, like a real like partnership in that sense of the word. So with Dudi and Angoramon, the important part is just that their personalities should nicely complement each other, which is clearly being demonstrated here. So I think in a series like this, you can definitely have more freedom with this kind of thing, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think in addition to the concern that you're mentioning, which I think is totally real, and I'm very great now that you put into words, I'm glad that the series has never really crossed that line in a way that felt gross. But I know the big factor I think is just that like the comment from Meg Hanjamon mentioned that like if the show is ultimately a marketing vehicle to boys especially, that's like it's one thing for a girl to have a a male partner, because then the male partner can still seem cool, but like a guy having a female partner seems less like cool or more like, I don't know.
But it's not like Kiyoshiro's meant to be looking cool to begin with, so
Yeah.
I don't think they need to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm just putting myself in the mindset of like, I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember how old I was, but like thinking like, oh man, like, and this is, probably certain level of closetedness that I did not realize I was, but like, being like, is it more effeminate? Like, as a guy, should I be listening to music sung by guys, or is that gay? Should I be listening to music sung by girls instead? Or is that gay because that's girly? I don't know which one is. I don't know what to do. Oh no, gender.
I can't chip in for the boys' perspective because I've always been the girl who's into shonen anime, so obviously, but at the same time, I think one thing that does help actually is that for this, the Digivice toys, kind of thing, all have the same SKU. This hasn't really been done before. The closest was that Atmon's Apply Drive had like the covers that you could change up. But like before, you would have the problem of like you're selling like the different colored like Digivices, and like the girls, the one for the partner for the human girls would sell less.
Mm.
You have to worry about that kind of thing. And here, I think the only like thing you have to really worry about is the disparity of like the dim card sales. But I don't think that's as big of an issue as like the whole device.
And they're bundling Angoramon with Jellymon, right?
Right.
Interesting.
So I think they're trying to be female audience friendly, not like feel like they're being locked out. But at the same time, I do feel like they're trying to do this in ways that like would prevent there from being at least a perceived severe hit in sales.
Yeah, and they're not like totally throwing off the chains of capitalism, but we shouldn't expect them to for Digimon. Dak and Jaxter said, amazing start. It's really taking its time to establish the characters and set the tone. Just the right level of spooky and playful. It's also nice to see variety in the foes' personalities. Some misguided and repentant, while others remain rotten.
Right, and like that's how you can set your expectations. Like, I don't know whether to expect whether this one was actually a nice one the whole time or whether this one is actually just terrible.
Yeah, and it, like Toy was mentioning, like it does kind of feel out of left field at the end, where it's like they could appear to be completely evil up until Hiro says something, and then it like completely sways them.
Yeah.
Hiro's voice is magical and can sway anyone, apparently.
He's very persuasive. It's like a Shin Megami Tensei negotiation. Gamamon's cuteness compels you.
Here's a comment that I am surprised we hadn't already brought up. And Austin LC23 said, I think it's a really interesting change to have Hiro pick the other kids instead of it being a destiny thing. It's even more fun because Ruli and Hiro experimented with the Digivices and each discovered different functions.
Right. And it, like I said, I think Savers is probably the only other one where like the device in question was like very strictly mechanical and man-made. With maybe Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, if you want to count that also as part of that as well. But it is interesting to see that because it is so like mundane. Oh wait, why? Well, Atmon kind of counts because I don't like to count it because Minerva is like a super AI. so like that vaguely counts as like a sci-fi version of divine bestowing, but like in this case, yeah, it's just like a very mad professor who seems to have made them. But yeah, like so it's interesting to see it very experimented with in a very mundane way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the experimenting is something that like it's kind of been one of those like things in the back of my mind. I've always been like, why don't you get a device with all these buttons? Why don't you at least try to see what the buttons do? And it's like never really talked about or discussed. And it's like, I guess I shouldn't expect that kind of experimentation and logical thought processes from Digimon. So it's like, Hiro did it. He did the thing. He tried pressing the buttons.
And like, it's also nice because, I said the other one was Savers, but Savers, it was, everybody was being handed out these devices under the context of being, under the hell of government labor. So it is nice to see like just kids playing around with it. And
congratulations, you're a cop.
Yeah. They're basically cop badges.
Masaru got promoted from street delinquent to cop.
But yeah, the idea of Hiro being the one picking the kids is
right.
I mean, we don't know like the full consequences for it, and I feel like I don't know, it's a fascinating way of reframing things that feels like completely natural. It's not like weird in context.
And it's funny because he gives it to her so nonchalantly. Like, he's like, you can have it. Like, it's kind of funny because it's like, my dad can't tell me what to do. And you clearly seem to be involved, so I don't see why you shouldn't.
I'm imagining, like, Digimon Adventure Joe being, who chose us anyway? And then just Hiro pops up in the background. Me, I choose them.
So yeah, I mean, I think I've complained in covering past Digimon seasons how like that choosing part of it, like it always seems like something that should be like like a big part of, especially when they go around calling them as chosen kids all the time. Like I wish there was a point to what they mean by that, and usually there isn't tons. It's kind of just the artifice of the show. You need to have that construct there. And yeah, it's cool to turn on its head, even if it is kind of just Hiro being like, well, I mean, here, just toss these out. I don't know. At Gigarijimon asked, is the lack of tamer cards in the TCG due to the Kanaka situation? Definitely not, but we'll get to that.
No.
Try seems to be ignored, except for Megamon appearing while Kizuna is being seemingly celebrated also.
So yeah, I'll tell you, it's not because of Konaka, because the Japanese fan base, for the large part of it, doesn't seem to know that happened.
Mm-hmm.
No, the lack of Tamers cards in the TCG is because Tamers merch doesn't sell well.
Well, I mean, they're putting freaking like Chronicle X in there, so I don't think that's the concern. Like
Chronicle X actually did well.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, yeah, okay, number one, let's get on the table. Tamers actually didn't sell well. People don't realize this, but Tamers had like only barely over half 02 sales. This was the first time sales really dropped. It's not because of Frontier that Digimon died. It was the combo of Tamers dragging things down and then Frontier being the last straw.
And also the whole fallout from the Toei Anime Fair and all of that. It was bad financials all around.
So part of the, I mean, I do think it's a little weird that they haven't put out Tamers because it is the 20th anniversary and all that. You'd think, they should put it out. And like, I do think it is possible they will get to it eventually. They're still putting out merch for the 20th anniversary. They're having all those pop-up shops. So it's not like they're dodging Tamers because of Konaka, because largely speaking, the Japanese fan base doesn't know that happened. Like, they don't really know that we had like a whole like political controversy over it. They just thought it was kind of bad.
And I mean, there is that whole EX02 mini booster set that's Tamers themed coming in on Christmas Eve, apparently.
So there is like some degree. So it's not that about the Konaka situation. I can tell you that right now. They're not worried about that.
It is interesting that they've had minor appearances from Saver's characters. They've had minor appearances from Crosswars characters. Not many, but like Shoutmon and the Shoutmon line. Minor appearances from Frontier character and a bunch of Frontier characters involved. So it is, but the thing is, like, Tamers is getting their own mini booster set. So it's like, it's later than those other minor appearances, but it's also in some ways bigger than any of those other ones. So like, I don't know.
It's hard to say. Yeah, like I think it's more the lack of tamer cards is like the part that's glaring. But I mean, again, like, if Savers and Frontier are, then there's no reason Tamers shouldn't be in. And so like, I don't really know yet.
Tamers does get tributes in like the individual Digimon card art, but with the lack of Tamer cards, I mean, the situation with Tamers is complicated because it is beloved by a hardcore fan base. It has a select following, but when you look at it broadly in terms of merchandising, it doesn't perform very well. That extends to anniversary stuff, actually. Like, why didn't we get anniversary Digivices after the D-Arc? Well, not very many people bought the anniversary D-Arcs.
Oh, I mean, like, like I said, I feel like if Savers and Frontier are in there, Tamer should be there too. Like, Savers really doesn't sell well, so like, I don't think that's really the argument there. But yeah, it is a little glaring, but at the same time, I don't. At least I can tell you, I don't think Konaka has anything to do with this. The try avoidance is a thing, though. I think there's definitely a good reason they're dodging that one. I don't think they're like super, super, super dodging it to the point that they're like hot potatoing it, but I'll just say I would not expect try pressure for a while.
I feel like even if there wasn't any reason to hot potato dodge anything, like, it's an awkward thing to convey when they already have 2020 era adventure characters to then also have, like, Kizuna is like such a different art style that it like can be distinctive, and try is that there a little bit, but then it's also the third one. Like, now there's 2020 Kizuna and then potentially a third one. Like, it starts to get confusing.
Well, there's a couple things going on. One, they already did a ton of pseudo adventure milking in 2020, so people are going to get kind of tired of that. Kizuna got away with it because it was like one booster. Like 02 kind of counts as something different because it has its own like very, very separate identity from like the adventure lineup. Two, you post something about try and you get people commenting cyber terrorism on it. So I think it's gonna be a while before you can expect much of it, to be really honest.
Wait, Esther, is that something you want me to leave in or want me to take out?
Leave it in.
Okay.
Honestly.
I mean, it's a real meme in the Japanese fan base.
Yeah, it's an actual meme.
Wait, can you explain the meme to me?
When they post about putting try on like streaming services, people will literally like quote retweet it saying cyber terrorism or like that you're inflicting this on the internet. Like, don't put this filth. You shouldn't be promoting this filth anymore. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, this is the part. The reason why I do want you to kind of leave this part in is because there is a thing going around saying that like, if you don't appreciate try, you're a stupid Westerner because the Japanese fan base loves it. Mm-hmm. That needs to go. I'm sorry. like, as an Asian person, I'm offended by this. Like, I'm sorry.
Japan has a whole wiki devoted to every problem they found in Try. We did not make that. They did.
Yeah, like,
We call it the Salt Wiki.
Well, on to another question. Andy Lucas OE asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried do we need to be that Chimeramon appears in Gamamon's dim card, given that the opening credits give us all 4 of his champions? Granted, only one of the ultimates looks like a true evolution for him. Could Chimeramon be a dark evolution, or worse, Millenniumon again?
Ugh.
So to clarify, Millenniumon is on the dim, right?
yeah, I don't think it's actually going to mean anything other than maybe it's reboot fan service. Who knows? But I did see a really funny fan art the other day where somebody said that they got Chimeramon like through on their Vital Bracelet or Digivice V, and then like they drew a picture of like Hito with a very, very, very like a really scared Hito with a Chimeramon, and then like the caption was like, "I feel like Takedo's gonna come and punch me later." So
Calm yourself. Return to your slumber. I don't want to
Okay.
deal with Millenniumon again. I don't know. Go back in the box. Back from the darkness from whence you came.
The thing that makes me curious, I was like, I think the stuff past the champions, past the adults, is just like placeholders, and like I think they're doing something a bit savvier than they did with the was it the Adventure 2020? Was it a Digivice V pet that had like
yeah,
it had stuff from like very late stage 2020 reveals?
yeah, it was the Digivice colon.
Yeah. So I think my guess is they've learned from that, and it's like the stuff past champion is just like, you know, we're not revealing too much. But the fact that like they put all that foreshadowing for like Gamamon's evil form, and it's just a champion, just an adult, like I'm excited that like that's not like gonna be this slow burn for the entire season. It's like hopefully we get that soon.
Yeah, so we'll see.
You know? Okay, bigger question from @Dak and Jackster. What do you guys think of Ko Otani's music so far? He mentioned during an interview on Shadow of the Colossus that he loved getting to compose a score with a sense of loss and decay. Assumedly, he even did Ruli's piano playing. It'll be interesting to see where he goes across the season. And I mentioned this, I foreshadowed this comment earlier because one of my favorite moments from episode 4 was actually when Pumpmon is having his flashback, and it's like cheery flashback music, and then like once you see that like the flashback becomes more and more deranged, it just like the piano becomes like an off tune, like I don't know what you call it, like that child's piano kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, this is perfect.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
I don't know if he did Duty's piano playing, but yeah, definitely have been really enjoying the scoring here. I was interested to see where this was going to go when they said like we got the Shadow of the Colossus composer. I'm like, wait, what? How is that going to work? But like, it is really nice. I really like. There's a certain motif that keeps playing. They use it in the picnic scene with Gamamon, and it's used in the in the first battle scene at the end of the first episode. There's a motif, a recurring that keeps like showing up. It's very subtle. The recurring motifs in 2020 were a little too unsubtle, so I kind of like the more graceful way it's being pulled off here. But it's really nice. I really like the scoring.
Yeah.
I liked the breakdown in the Pumpkinmon sequence. I like when the sequences are set in that way, that they're timed so that the music and the visuals complement each other in that way, that you have that collapse and it makes you feel the emotional weight of the scene. And I mean, in this case, it's enhancing something that I think without the music, the scene would come across as kind of corny, but here it elevates it.
Yeah, I'm just... The thing that's in the back of my head is how, I guess, it was from episode 1 of Adventure 2020. There was that moment when, like, after Greymon evolved and, like, him charging was kind of timed to the music, and it was like, it wasn't like 100%, but it was, like, almost timed to it. I remember, like, posting a video on Twitter, like, being really like excited about how it was timed to the music, and I could feel at the time that this was kind of a stretch, but I was like, oh man, I have so much confidence in this series. This is just going to be the beginning of doing even more cool stuff like this. And then eventually I looked back on that and was like, no, I was stretching.
I still think the scoring for Adventure 2020 was pretty good, but there was that motif that they kept using like for literally everything, so I do kind of appreciate toning down on that a little bit.
I'm still untraining my brain from Adventure 2020's format where I expect like Gamamon to go Hiro and Hiro to go Gamamon, and then it's like dun-dun-dun, 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 and then cut to the stock footage evolution sequence.
One thing I actually, well, I mean, this is only a minor complaint, but since I'm also rewatching Atmon, that one thing I miss about the Atmon format that I feel like they've learned from Enter 2020 is that like I really like how Atmon kind of always had stuff before the opening song, so it was like spread out more.
Oh, the cold opening?
Yeah.
So the thing is that's not that common for like Crosswords, Savers, and Atmon did that, but nothing before before Savers did that.
It really stood out to me when they did that.
Yeah. Like, but then, you also had the trade-off where, like, Savers and Cross Wars sometimes had the opening, like, halfway into the episode.
Yeah,
which was, like,
Cross
really
Wars,
weird.
it felt very weird and unfamiliar when they were doing that, and I'm like, that was the prelude to the opening?
Yeah. So it is yeah. They are on and off about whether they do that.
Yeah. I guess it's just weird that, like, this series feels like it's so Atmon adjacent.
It is a little.
Atmon's brainy little brother.
Well, okay. Last question from PDX Anime. Do we have any predictions on a plot for Ghost Game? And they say that they feel like this is playing similar to Tamers, where the majority of the series takes place in the real world and maybe an arc in the digital world. And they feel like finding the dad is probably the end goal.
People keep bringing up Tamers, and it's like, other than Gaon being really cute and some degree of a horror atmosphere, like, I'm finding way more cohesive comparisons I could make to Savers or Cyber Sleuth or Atmon even. Like, I really feel like the Tamers comparisons stop really early. Especially, and like, finding what happened to Hiro's dad is, like, probably the biggest question right now. And especially because, it seems like the reason why he disappeared is because he tapped into something, or he figured out something about, like, the truth between, like, why the worlds are colliding and stuff. So I do think that's going to be, like, the major, like, plot conceit. And then, Savers was about, like, bridging worlds and people with different, sets of morality. So that was a theme of that too. And the AR field concept comes from Hunters and Atmon, and that sounds like that's going to get a lot more use here. And especially that seems like it's going to be a big thing too, because, it's in the opening and Hiro's dad says your world will change. And it kind of ties into, like, the ARG nature of the Digivice V. So, like, yeah, I honestly don't really know if a Tamers comparison really works here after a certain point. But, everyone has been trying to, like, make that comparison, but I keep feeling like it feels like it's turning into the kind of the Dark Souls of Digimon kind of comparison. And I don't know if I'm really comfortable with that.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the easiest reference point for series that starts off entirely grounded in the real world.
Right. Is also kind of spooky, I guess, but...
I think the other thing is that, like, we have an obvious mystery, but Hiro's dad was not, like, he's not missing in action. Like, he said he's okay. He said, you don't need to search for me. And Hiro's kind of doing that despite. So, like, there's no urgency. Like, at least with Masaru Marcus's dad, like, there was like a mystery that, and there is still a mystery with this, but it's like, it's an interesting, like, lack of urgency to it. In a way that reminds me almost of the vibe of Atmon, not the text of Atmon. Because I feel like in the actual dialogue of Atmon, they were like, there's this urgent threat, we need to defeat them as soon as possible. But then, like, oh no, but let's casually do various things each week. And so, yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like in Atmon, I kept waiting for them to have a digital world arc, and it never really happened.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't assume that it's going to fall just because it starts off like this. It's like, it's totally going to be like, Tamers, where there's, like, a solid arc. I mean, even, like, Savers was very back and forth about how it visited the digital world. So it's like, yeah, I don't see any reason to be restricted to that concept.
Yeah, and I feel like even if it's similar to Tamers, like, I feel like almost no one actually likes that arc of Tamers in the
that's the least popular arc of Tamers. Like, everyone like, even like people who usually otherwise, like, really like Tamers, that's generally acknowledged as, like, the weakest part of Tamers.
Yeah, I feel like Savers did that better, where, like, it had a lot more hopping back and forth.
Or also, just the like, portrayal of the digital world in Tamers was not exactly, it was a little,
The Savers digital world was a lot more interesting with the literal giant tree and everything.
Yeah. I mean, also when it comes to openings, like, I was discussing this with my friend, because the thing is, I've been showing Ghost Game to a friend who has never touched Digimon before, and they're, like, loving it. So I decided this would be kind of their introduction to, Digimon as well. And so I thought I decided I was going to show them one episode of Ghost Game and one episode of something else. And I was thinking about which one they would like most. And usually my go-to recommendation has been Atmon these days, if I'm just sending you off on your own to go watch a Digimon series. But for them, I wanted to take their tastes into account. So I did think that they would like Adventure and Zero too. So I started watching one episode of Ghost Game and two episodes of Adventure. Adventure is so slow. It's like, you can feel, like, the hype just plummet when we're watching equivalent Adventure episodes, because it is slow during this first part. And I was kind of thinking about, like, why is it like this? Like, for all the openings that are criticized for having really slow openings, why are they considered to have slow? Because technically we have an episodic anime right now, but we can't really say it's slow. And I think the biggest problem with Adventure and with Savers, I think Atmon wasn't as bad about this, but the big problem with, like, the Adventure opening, which goes for a whole, like, 20 some episodes before you start really feeling the payoffs, and for Sabers, where it infamously it takes like 11, 12 episodes for it to really settle, is that the concept of where you're aiming for is not strong enough for the early episodes. So Adventure, you don't have a guarantee of how much of this is going to make a payoff. For those of us who know like where Adventure does eventually go, you can catch those little things like, okay, this part, like pay attention to this part, or you like recognize why these episodes are important. But for new people, I've had so many stories of people who drop Adventure before the 20-some mark because of how like boring it is, and because they don't have the frame of reference of what's going to be important later. They don't know what this is building up to before, other than like, maybe there's some other kind of enemy and now you need to defeat this one too, and then maybe you'll go home. But it's like they're still stuck in the same world, and like it doesn't feel like anything advances. So Adventure is like a really, really hard sell unless you're like sitting down with them and pointing out all the things that are going to be important later. And Sabers also has the same problem where they do float his dad above their heads as a mystery, but then like for the first 11 episodes it's just literally doing government work. So there's no sense of like progression of like where this is going. And I do think this is something that this Atmon took a while because it introduced the concept of Leviathan, but then it only started like upping the stakes around like episodes like 4, 7 and all that. Here I do think that like even though it does a good job by like keeping there being some concept of high stakes in that like it is causing very serious creepy problems for people in the vicinity, that Hiro's problem with his dad is like looming over his head and clearly causing him emotional problems. And I think there's just like a lot more to feel like this is going in a proper direction even from these very early episodes.
In terms of the plot of Ghost Game, the big hanging question for me is Hiro's dad, and like what kind of dad is he actually? Because, well, we know he's a pretty bad father so far. And that's basically like, we know he's okay in the digital world. He's doing whatever it is he wants to do. He's currently accomplishing his goals, and he doesn't want his kid searching for him, and his kid is searching for him. And like, I can't look at Hiro and not think he has been emotionally neglected in all this. Like,
yeah,
it's not good parenting to make your son basically, this sounds really gross, into your wife, doing the things that your wife would normally do.
No, I mean that's what in that episode, like it's Hiro's like when he goes to get his dad, it's like it's the day of his middle school entrance exams, and he has to like make breakfast for his dad, and then his dad's missing, and like that made, I don't know. I'm curious if there's going to be like was he on a completely different trajectory to go to some like better middle school that he couldn't get into because he couldn't take the exams because his dad disappeared, and then he had to go to a
it was entrance ceremony, so he already got in.
But still, you should be like making your kid a special breakfast or something on that day. You should not be having them cook for you while you're so busy at work you're not paying attention to their school life.
So we are really seeing like the emotional impact, because in Masato, at least he still had his mom and sister, but Hiro's been like abandoned.
And what I'm wondering is, so this current arc seems like, since Hiro is asking Digimon about how to get to the digital world, presumably he's going to try to go there, and he's asking them if they've met his dad because he wants to find his dad. At some point he's going to find his dad, and maybe that's the end game of the season, or maybe that's just the goal we're setting right now for this initial arc that'll be solved in 13 or 26 episodes, or whenever the arcs close.
That's like the mini story.
Okay, when we find him, is his dad a villain? Like, what if he's actually not a good guy? Alternatively, if he is a good guy, what is it that he's doing? Like, what antagonist is he up against? That's where I think the plot of Ghost Game is. Either the dad is the antagonist, or the dad is fighting against something and he needs Hiro to help. But at some point, like, Hiro's issues with his father are going to come to a head and have to be resolved.
Right. I definitely get the impression that there is something greater than his dad going on in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be disappointing if like that is the entire like the culmination of the series. But also like everything you're describing, Toya, I had very similar thoughts watching and reading Hunter x Hunter, and that is a series all about a kid who, I guess, I don't know what age Gon is supposed to be, but I mean the target demographic for the manga and anime is a little bit higher than Digimon, and it's entirely about a kid whose dad disappeared and him trying to find his dad. And the whole time I'm like, this dad is not a good dad. Like, he's maybe not the villain, but like, you should find him and then like, give him a talking to at least. But instead it's like, no, that, like, apparently that was the entire wrong framing to go into that series. And I don't know, I guess for an even younger demographic, I feel like it's, I don't know, I would be very surprised if it actually tries to play with that and like hold him accountable.
Well, I mean, I think there are like, I don't know if they are going to succeed in holding him accountable, but I think they are clearly showing enough of Hiro's very severe emotional problems to like not gloss over that as an issue. I
Well,
guess.
I'm worried that it's like, oh, now he has Gamamon as a younger brother and friends, so now he gets away with
Yeah,
his
okay.
issues.
But his
Yeah, I
friends are
don't
like,
know.
wow, you'll just do anything you're told, huh?
Yeah, I'm also worried about that with Ruli. Like, I thought she would, be like, oh, you do everything you're told. I'm going to stop telling you to do things. But we didn't get
Well,
that
I
yet.
mean, she is still kind of getting a feel for his personality, so it
Yeah.
is possible she could call him out later. But
Yeah.
I think that they are going to come into conflict over that at some point, and she's going to tell him to stop being so obedient all the time.
right, but like she barely just got on given name basis with him, so I think she's still kind of getting a grasp for like what kind of person he is.
Yeah.
Like I give her more leeway than I do like Kotaro in the first episode, because Kotaro should have totally known better.
Yeah, like they've been
But
friends for a while, and he seems to be clearly. Well, I guess Ruli's also profiting off of it, but like he's profiting off it in more direct ways, and like,
yeah,
and they're close enough that he's even like Hiro seems annoyed by having to give him homework and still doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And then he hits on his nurse, so don't like him.
I could see them at some point introducing a like dark counterpart rival character for Hiro in the future. And this is just me spitballing, but like imagine if you will that this rival is encountered in the digital world when they find the dad, and the dad is being a better dad to this kid Hiro's never met than he was to him.
Ooh.
There's a couple things I could spoil that have that plot twist, but anyway, I did notice that in episode 4, they introduced 2 more friends of Rudy just so they could traumatize them instead of Mika and Aoi. So I wonder, like, what this like? They seem to make sure they didn't want Mika and Aoi to get personally accosted by a pumpkin. That was interesting.
I felt bad for the translation team that one of them was called Moe, and I'm like, I don't think you can write Mo as a name in English without
No.
people thinking it's
Yeah.
Mo.
Boy,
If
Yeah.
you put an H on the end,
so
Oh, maybe, but I hope I guess Moe has conquered enough anime that maybe general audiences in English will understand Moe.
it is a name. But yeah, I did notice that like instead of using Mika and Aoi, they introduced 2 new characters just to traumatize.
Well, I guess we've already kind of pivoted to like broader discussion. But to close things out, how would we rate these episodes?
I feel like I need to up my episode 1 rating retroactively, actually, because I realized how strong of an opening it is, like, the more I think about it, like, especially in retrospect, considering what it was epic. So I think I will actually, like, I'm sorry, I gave it a 4 and during the week it aired, but I am actually going up it to a 5, because, yeah, I think that was a very extremely strong opening in retrospect. I think 2 will get a 4.5 for me in light of that. Let's see. 3 would be a solid 4, and then I would give a solid 4 to 4 too.
Enjoy it.
I gave a 4 to episode 2 and 3, and a 5 to episode 4.
Because Toya liked 5. I mean 4. Yeah.
Because we're going to battle this out in the parking lot after this episode.
Oh no.
I mean, our scales are ascending. Jeff gave it a 3.5, you gave it a 4, and I gave it a 5.
Yep. Yeah, so I basically I'm going to keep my 4-star for episode 1, and then I enjoyed 2 and 3 more, so they get 4.5 stars, and then I enjoyed 4 a little less, so 3.5. And
yeah, and like it is hard to say, like, did I enjoy episode 1 in a vacuum, or did I enjoy episode 1 as something holding the burden of a first episode? Because that is actually why I upped my rating. Because I think, like, if you just told me strictly, like, did I prefer episode 1 in a vacuum or episode 2 in a vacuum more, I would say probably 2, actually. But like thinking more in terms of like what that first episode was setting up and the burdens it had to carry, like I appreciate it retroactively a lot more.
Oh, I enjoyed episode 1 in comparison to the colonoscopy that was last season.
Okay. Well, also I came off that whole marathon of watching every first episode of every Digimon series, and I have been thinking about that marathon for like the last 4 weeks. So
well, the more important question goes to the month. I think it's like practically it's probably Gamamon for me, but I'm going to actually give it to Blacktailmon.
Still giving it to Blacktailmon.
Because I want them to come back. This is my summoning circle.
I'm going to give it to Angoramon, actually. I was very impressed by his entrance into
I'm surprised that, like, I mean, the number of votes I've been getting on the character polls and posting on Twitter isn't, like, huge, but I was surprised that Angoramon completely outshined Gamamon so far for episode 4.
Yeah, I'm shocked neither of you picked Gamamon for this episode, or this batch.
I think it's too easy. That's why I'm kind of inclined to like not pick it, because I know like that's such an easy answer that I need to pick something that'll be a little different.
I mean, someone voted for Kyoshiro for this week's episode, and I don't think he was in it at all.
I'm certainly tempted to throw it to Gamamon, but I think I will give it to Pumpmon, you disturbed little whatever you are. Vegetable. You disturbed little vegetable. What is wrong with you?
Well, I guess looking forward to next week, it seems like there's going to be an Orochimon, and we have...
Oh no, it's
Coatamon.
Coatamon.
Right?
Oh.
Coatlmon.
It's an armored Digimon from 02.
Well, it's not from 02, but yeah.
It's from that era.
Yes.
Oh. And why weren't there several snakes?
Well, there were several small, like, normal snakes, but the actual Digimon in question was, Coatamon.
Oh,
it had green hair.
Interesting. Well, the other thing that I'm baffled by is that it, well, I mean, we get a tease of Jellymon, which makes sense. It's time. But the title is Divine Anger. Okay. It seems like a lot. And I don't remember the name, Majiramon, the Dragon Deva? Is that who was there? The very last frame of the teaser?
Oh, yeah, help.
Yeah, this is, gosh, hold on. I have to, how do I pronounce this? This is, wait, is it, it's the green one with the antlers, right? Majiramon?
Majiramon?
Yeah. I think it has the same name I don't think the dub changed his name.
Majiramon, yeah.
I don't even remember if they said his name aloud in Tamers.
Oh, maybe.
Because I remember him being defeated oddly quickly compared to the other Devas.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't he just being, like, ridden around as a ride?
It was a ride for the monkey.
Yeah. But, I don't know. That's a strange assortment of things happening next week.
That's very interesting. We're finally getting Kiyoshiro and his gamer chair and streamer setup.
Oh,
the chair is so bad. This kid has a gamer chair and then all of those talismans and...
I need to look back at his gamer chair.
It's Mountain Dew green, I think.
Yeah.
No.
You know, I could give a pass to the tons of screens he has, because I have seen like the necessity to have that many screens if your work requires it, but the gamer chair, man.
They're not good for your posture. Don't buy those.
Okay. I mean, there are some that are good, but like cheaper ones are like there are cheaper ones that are non-gamer chairs that are much better at that price range.
Yeah.
That chair, the aesthetic, that color scheme. Yeah.
I like green. I kind of wish I had a green Nintendo DS back in the day, but
it's the gamer green.
Also, as we learned from Appmon, having that many screens doesn't really do anything unless you have multiple keyboards so you can double hack.
Double or triple hack, yeah.
Appmon and Cyber Sleuth.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, really.
Well, I think, who knows what's happening next week, but I think the more interesting question is, where do we think we'll be when we record next after episode 8?
You know...
Southern California?
Oh, yeah. I expect this plot to go really slowly, because, like, just the overall background plot, I mean, because, you know, it is an episodic story. It's similar to Appmon in that, like, anyway, if you really think about it, Appmon's background plot actually went really slowly. It feels like it went fast, because there were so many things going on with the characters, with the dynamics, with everything going on in the background, and, like, you know, all of that. But, like, in actuality, if you just, like, summarize, like, the plot, the overall overarching plot, it's only like one paragraph at most. So it's like, I feel like we're getting another one of these, and that's fine, I think, because, you know, we need to be accessible as possible, and we need people to get in easily. You know, we need people to be able to jump in the middle of the series if they really want to. So I expect that it's mainly just going to be like, okay, this episode is introducing Kyoshiro. This episode is introducing another evolution. This episode is introducing another evolution. Like, you know, I think it's just going to be mostly dedicated to kind of introducing more of the characters and the character dynamics. We're meeting Jellymon for the first time next episode, so we are going to have to, like, get to know her a little bit. So I do think it's just going to be mostly, like, focusing on the character dynamic, having them learn more about how this whole process is supposed to work to begin with, and how they play off each other, how we introduce the evolutions in general, and by that time, probably background plot wise, the only thing that'll happen is we'll have met a few more ghosts. But I think, you know, if they keep us entertained with interesting character dynamics, you know, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign if the base formula is entertaining. And I think, like, when you were describing some of the, like, frustrations people have with Savers going slow and stuff, it's like, and it bums me out, because I remember I really liked that base formula of Savers, so I never felt like it was going slow.
Right.
So I think it's good if they're like, if people are sold by what this, I mean, I kind of worry about what this, like, it seems like this entire series being horror themed, being called Ghost Game, is like tied into this episodic early premise. And I'm wondering what it would even look like if it eventually moves towards a more overarching serialized storyline. And
Right.
so I think it makes a lot of sense to, like, I don't know, maybe never go entirely serialized, or to, I don't know.
And I'm not gonna say never. Like, Atmon had a few moments. Atmon was pretty mostly serious. Like, this is the thing when we talk about like being self-contained in one episode. Like, everybody, not a lot of people break up the fact that Atmon was actually like that. The majority of its episodes were self-contained. There were like very few like serial moments where they like those were like the kind of key points where they started really escalating the plot a little bit, but it was kind of like in steps. Like, you had like a block of like episodic episodes, and then you had the ones that really escalated the plot, and then you had back to the block of episodes. So it's like you take it easy, I guess, is like how you do it. Like, you do have a plot, you do have an overarching progressive, but you take it easy. And like my friend circle loves to bring this up, but like, yeah, Gravity Falls like probably the most relevant comparison to it is like it's serialized, but it's also not. So, I mean, I don't think that's hard to like strike that balance if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, I think definitely within 4 episodes, we're probably not going to see any major shakeup in any direction. And there's still so much, like, we've met Angorma, but not seen an evolution yet. So we're still so early. Yeah. I'm going to, put my prediction out there that Black Tailmon's going to my Ghost of the Month next month too.
Let's hope for that.
They better come back. All right. Before we close out the show, do you guys want to recommend any other pieces of media?
You should play the Caligula Effect too. I'm not kidding. The Caligula Effect, the first game, you should not play it. You should just skip straight to 2. Because the Caligula Effect is basically a game made by a producer who he didn't actually say this, but I swear this is what happened. Saw Persona, saw the fact that it was tackling social issues, but saw the fact that it was kind of doing it performatively just to pat itself on the back, and actually kind of went homophobic at times. And went, you know what, I actually want to like make something that represents its population. And this is the part he did actually say. He talks a lot about how like he wants to make something that actually represents like, parts of the population that will never be properly represented in like mainstream games. So like, this is when you actually put thought into like how to do this properly. But the problem is the first game, first of all, not only does the first game not play well at all because it's really clunky and performance is awful and there's so many good ideas executed badly. The problem with the first game is that it really sounds like they didn't get their sensitivity checkers. And the second game is what happens when they did get the sensitivity checkers. So there's like, the second game's writing is phenomenal. The gameplay is still kind of okay, but the writing just like totally makes up for it. And I think like the most incredible thing is like the way it covers mental health topics and how to reach out to your friend who is having a lot of severe emotional problems, is that they make it very clear that if you are going to get close to somebody who has that level of emotional problem and you want to help them through it, you are going to be heavily risking bringing up their trauma again. Like, you have to like be gracious about this. You have to listen to them. The biggest like theme of the game is that you have to listen to somebody when they're talking about their problems. You can't just make assumptions about them just because you think you know how to handle their problems. And the question prompts are like geared in a way where you get two answers to like their question, and they ostensibly seem really similar, like to the point they both sound like visual novel pleasing you like answers, but it basically tests you on, have you been listening to this person? Because one of them will have a slight nuance that implies that you aren't listening to them and you're just giving them like nice cushy words. The other one is the one that actually addresses what their problem is, and it's like basically kind of training you, like when you want to talk to somebody with their problems, you need to actually listen to them. You need to actually like take what they're going through into account. It is a really nuanced like look into like what it takes to support a friend who's going to like really serious issues, and also like does not shy away from how emotionally exhausting it is going to be on your part to do something like that. And I'm just thinking like, I think people need to play this game. It's pretty incredible. So 2 is basically, the premise of 2 is a sequel to 1, but they catch you up on the plot in the first hour. They did officially say it's made in such a way that you can jump in at 2. And the overall plot is actually really just 1, but better. So I think it's okay if you just go straight to 2. If you're really curious and you like it, maybe go back and play 1 or watch a Let's Play. But yeah, I think you should get it.
And that game is coming out. Oh, that's already out.
It's already out, yes.
That came out October 19th.
It was out in Japan for a while already, and it is currently out in English.
Okay. We're living in a very interesting time because, back in like the Game Boy Advance and DS and 3DS era, like we would get multiple really great turn-based RPGs per year, and you don't really see that so often now. You don't even see good ones very often because everything has moved to real time for the most part. But along a similar line, I'm going to recommend Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is coming out November 11th. And like normally I am reticent to recommend things that are not actually out yet, but there has never been a terrible mainline Shin Megami Tensei game. There have been good ones with points that drag them down, some more than others, and there have been great entries. So it's generally a safe bet. And this game is, well, it's kind of highly anticipated inside the Mega 10 franchise community, people that are really into Megami Tensei, but it represents kind of a big step forward because this is, and Shin Megami Tensei, it's the 5th game, but you don't need to play the previous ones to jump in. They're mostly self-contained. The one exception is 4 has a sequel called 4 Apocalypse, and Apocalypse, which came out back in 2016, that actually ended like the ongoing, there was a larger arc building up inside the games that they weren't necessarily directly connected in the sense of a sequel, but there was a clear ongoing thing that was being built up to, and Apocalypse finished that. So 5 is like a new beginning for it. And it's also like it's kind of it's a new age in the sense of the people that are working on it, because Shin Megami Tensei's traditional character designer and conceiver of the greater world, Kanako Kazuma, and then Okada Koji, they have kind of taken a step back and slowly rolled things out to let the newer people take hold of the series. And there have been some missteps in that. I think there always are when you're trying to like prep somebody to take stuff over. But this is, whatever this turns out to be, it's going to be very interesting and very cool. And the gameplay footage actually looks great.
Also, I should say, you know how like there was the whole question of like Digimon being a ripoff of Pokemon, and most Digimon fans think that's like absolute bull.
Yeah.
Digimon is a ripoff of SMT for kids. I'm not even gonna like mince words about that. Like, okay, first of all, the whole data virus vaccine triangle is literally just a ripoff of neutral chaos and law. And like, secondly, we know this is a ripoff because Arukenimon's botched romanization and transliteration, the fact that the translation goes down even to like in Japanese, the reason it's that way is because SMT also made that mistake.
Yeah, the Megami Tensei franchise. It's a lot more influential than people realize.
It literally invented the monster collecting genre and the way we know it now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like I was showing Frontier to a friend the other day. We finished it recently. And we've been watching Frontier for a while. And I literally, like, sold it to her by... like when I was describing it, she's like, "That sounds like Digital Devil Saga." And like she just kept making SMT connections all the way down. So like there's a very tight accidental kinship between the two franchises.
Digital Devil Saga without the cannibalism.
Hopefully,
Megaten is not afraid to approach hard or strange or dark topics. It's not like people call it edgy. Sometimes it is, but it's a series that is directed at older adolescents and young adults, and yes, adults. Kaneko called it like the punk RPG that tends to go against the trends of the time, whatever they are, which is kind of funny because Megaten's spin-off Persona has largely dictated the trends of Japanese role-playing games for probably a decade now. But it's not a tasteless series for the most part. There, like I said before, there were some missteps, but it's mostly stuff that like nerds inside the Megaten community talk about, people like me, where they did things like bring in guest artists that really didn't understand the mythos or the idea of treating different mythologies with respect, which is mostly what Megaten does.
And like every JRPG is all about incorporating random mythology elements.
Yeah, Megaten like actually has lore profiles for each of the monsters where it's not their lore in universe, it's their lore in our universe. How were they viewed in their own mythology? Some of which are very deeply researched, others not. So if you want to go into that, there's one of my friends, Eriker, I think was his name, did a whole series of, he called them Kaneko's Crib Notes, where he dug into the origins of where Megaten sourced all of its information, which this series is very old. It goes back to the late 1980s. So like sometimes they didn't always have the best books available. But it's an interesting game series. In terms of whether it invented the Mon genre, yeah, it mostly did set the template. But I recently had this brought up to me that Megaten may or may not have been influenced by Wizardry 4, which also had you using monsters as party members. But the thing is that like Wizardry 4 didn't come out in Japan until like late 1988 maybe, and it's not really, I don't know, there's a lot of more interviews from Megaten about like what their influences were, and I don't know if that specifically was ever brought up.
And like Megaten's version of like collecting and like sorting them around and shuffling them around, I think is the way we usually think of the genre now.
Yeah. Mega Man Tensei 1 was September 11th, 1987. Wow, now I see why they don't observe the anniversary all that often.
Yeah.
Also, it was adapted from a novel that was even older, so the monster catching thing, whatever. Megaten, I don't know. I'm excited about this game.
My question is, we've had so many Shin Megami Tensei games. Where's the Nisei Megami Tensei? It's not even, I don't even know if I can leave that joke in the podcast because it only works if you.
It only
some
works if you know
Japanese.
Japanese. Yeah.
Oh my god. Most of them actually aren't Megami Tensei games. If you look at the original Japanese titles, it's interesting. They tried to turn Shin Megami Tensei into the like mothership brand for the series over in the West.
Which is the worst decision to make with an untranslated Japanese name. I can't believe they did that. That's
Oh
stupid.
gosh. Look,
Ugh.
bad decisions from 2002 are forever, all right? Nocturne sold really well. Actually, the first one to have the SMT label in America was Demi Kids light and dark version, which was the actual Megaten for children. Don't play those. I've 100% of them. They're terrible.
Okay. That was a very deep Shin Megami Tensei lore that we went down. But my recommendation is, I guess, surface level. Last month we talked a little bit about Metroid and how you should not play Metroid Other M and you should play Metroid Fusion.
Yep.
The obvious thing I'm going to talk about now is Metroid Dread. It came out.
Yay!
It's really good. It looks fantastic. The gameplay, I don't know, might be not everyone's cup of tea. It's much more railroady than I really expected. But I like that in Metroid games, and the boss battles are incredibly tough in a way that is usually not my cup of tea. And I don't like the idea of games like Dark Souls where they like punish you over and over. But that's what these bosses are. But the one glimmer of hope in that is that it is very, very forgiving in terms of boss battles are very easy to, well, like you can dodge every single attack. There is nothing that is like undodgeable. And also every time you die, you restart right before the boss battle. So like it's very forgiving about like the whole point is you're supposed to learn exactly how the boss attacks and figure out like they are basically a puzzle that you're supposed to figure out. And basically having more health is just a way to like prolong that early phase where you don't know how the boss works. Once you actually know how a boss works, it's fairly normal to like go through the entire boss encounter without getting it hit at all. So it's a very fun game. It also looks really cool. The graphics are amazing, and especially having like replayed some Metro games and seeing how the franchise almost went down another M path. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so glad they went back in this direction.
Good.
So those are all things to check out. Very different. Well, I don't know. I guess clearly the Effect and Shin Megami Tensei have a Persona thing in the middle there. They're connected by a little bit.
Sort of Persona.
Well, there are some overlapping themes between these, not between all three, but like, yes, Caligula Effect 2 with the Persona influence, Megaten with being the progenitor of Persona and its whole gameplay. Persona is just a watered down Megami Tensei.
It is.
The press turn system is literally just a better version of the One More system. And, well, Shin Megami Tensei and Metroid Dread, they can both be somewhat railroady at times, and sometimes they just rail you.
Also, Metroid Dread is technically a turn-based game if you consider every turn to be the render loop of the game engine.
Well,
one frame.
Every
one
frame animation is a turn.
The conclusion is that video games are fun and you should play video games.
Yes.
And play video games to have fun. Don't play video games to feel superior to other people.
Yeah. And don't get an ugly gamer chair while you're at it.
Mountain Dew Green.
Game the ghost, don't ghost the game. Anyway, that terrible catchphrase that I did not just say brings us to the end of the show. Last month's Digiprompt was, what pre-existing Digimon would you want to see appear as a hologram ghost in Ghost Game, and what spooky rumors would spread about them? And the post that I made on Twitter asking for this like blew up and got so many more responses than I expected, and there were so many good ones. I'll have a link in the show notes to the tweet where you can see everyone's replies because they were all really great. But two of my favorites were just the imagery of this. Karuta Prime said, Chimeramon in a library with a terrible wig, and everyone says they can hear a voice saying Oni-chan.
Scars, man, the scars.
I think that imagery itself is fabulous, but also if you get the Fullmetal Alchemist reference is even better. And Bored Individual said Burgermon, and they mentioned that the rumor would be that you hear about a place where a burger serves you burgers, and I want to see that. Well, this month's Digiprompt is, what pre-existing Digimon do you think could appear in Ghost Game for a special winter holidays themed episode? And how would they appear both festive and spooky?
It's time for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, this is going to be our episode for, like, the next one's going to come out in December-ish, probably, or late November. So, yeah, it's almost Christmas time.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
Oh, no, now I'm imagining the Futurama Santa
I
Claus.
still don't know whether Nightmare Before Christmas is a Halloween or a Christmas movie, so...
Yes.
And I can never remember if the plot of Nightmare Before Christmas I remember is from Kingdom Hearts or from the actual movie. So, well, send any feedback to potages@gmail.com, to potages on Twitter, or in the episode comments on potages.com. Check out the show notes to find a link to join our Discord server and continue the conversation. And share the podcast with your friends who don't try to show their friendship by wrapping you up in bandages or carving a pumpkin while your head is inside it. If this is your first episode, you can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. So I think let's go around and share where people can find us on the internet.
I am AtlasGL on Twitter, and I'm also in the Discord server a lot, so come say hi.
And you can find me on Twitter at Tuoya, on YouTube at Maniacs Channel, and on Facebook. No, I'm not linking my Facebook here. That's not funny.
I'm only on Meta.
Yeah, are you enjoying that teleportation feature?
God. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, let's... yikes. Anyway, I'm Definitely Jeff on Twitter, and also finally have an episode of Love It a Wee Bit that I haven't had episodes in a while because I've been not up for editing a while. But now there's do I want to point to people to this? We watched all of Cowboy Bebop and reviewed it, but also I didn't love it. I know everyone loves that show, so I don't know. Only listen if you're okay with someone not loving Cowboy Bebop.
You're a traitor to the Toonami Nation.
Yeah.
Well, look, Terriermon's voice actress is in it, so that's the important part. No, anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back in 4 weeks to talk about episodes 5 through 8. Bye.
Woo!
Bye. And remember, never stop Digivolving.
Gotta go back to the Digi world, 'cause Digimon don't get scared. It's spooky, 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 it's spooky,
Is my audio going slowly?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we'll know until a couple hours from now.
I jury rigged this whole setup, so
Was that like the Tamer's character jury?
yes,
reference?
yes, that was
Okay.
a reference.
So I mean, in terms of the two things you mentioned, like the lore and the dynamic with Ruli. Oh, sorry, my device. Oh God.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. Jeff, no Digivices in class.
I can't mute it until after the battle. My Balmon encounter another Balmon.
Angoramon Sensei is going to take it away.
Normally this doesn't happen but I just finished oh my God, what's it called, like an adventure mission.
You can mute it, but yeah, you'd have to finish the battle first. I know some people see not using the official romanization as like a symbol of anarchy against the official, but like I've never seen it that way. So yeah,
I see it that way depending on the fandom or the franchise. But like Digimon, I don't know.
I think we've been all over the place with official romanizations in Digimon that like nobody cares.
Digimon, it's a matter of practicality. The official romanizations suck or are non-existent.
Yeah, half the time that's the problem.
Like if there were a like large percentage of the fan base that was like, I refuse to watch on Crunchyroll because they chose this name, then I would be like, okay, using that name means something. But I mean, hopefully people aren't doing that. So
I haven't seen that. I mean, I think like people for the most part are just like chilling.
Yeah.
That can't happen anymore because there's no longer like teams of people releasing slightly tweaked subtitles that change the names and add in the suffixes.
Yeah, nobody's doing that. Well, yeah, because the official subs already have the honorifics in there anyway, so it's not like you have anything. No one's really disputing. And then like I think everybody's pretty satisfied with the Crunchyroll translation. So
there was a time when fan subgroups would do this to each other, that somebody would start a group just to use different romanizations from a different subgroup.
Yeah.